All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, and if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or like, subscribe, whatever you can do, follow, because I know some of the apps that are out there you have to follow. Please go ahead and support us any way you can. It is truly appreciated by all of the shows that we do. Plus also our guests, all of our guests that are coming on the show that have podcasts, if you can support them as well, including our guest today, please do so. It is truly appreciated by all of us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I've got a great guest on who has his own awesome show, although it's not on the Lakers per se, but it's on another great team in the NBA, or a team that has a future, a youth movement, I should say, that's coming on.
Yeah, great's a tough word.
Yes. Great is a tough word. I shouldn't say that. Sometimes I say great too much. So it is a youth movement on the way. Some of it was supplied by the Lakers themselves. But it is a team with the youth movement, and actually you're going to be seeing it a lot more close up here in the next few days, because they are part of the NBA's bubble. It is the Washington Wizards, and I've got on a great guest. See, there you go, great again. Great guest today, who is the host, along with NBA veteran Larry Hughes, the guard that played so many years in the league. I know he was just an awesome player when he was playing. And each time he sits down with our guest, they go in depth on the Washington Wizards, the NBA, and so much more. It is Matt Modderno, and I'll tell you what, Matt, it's just great to have you on the show, and thank you for just going ahead and reaching out. I'm just so thankful to have you on the program today.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I'll talk basketball anytime, and I feel like whatever bright future we have, part of it we owe to the Lakers. So this is kind of nice. We're basically the Lakers G League team at this point.
And that has been the joke amongst Lakers fans. I'm trying to be a little bit more gracious about it because of the fact that 2 of the 3 that I think you've got on your team, I think, have a future. Mo Wagner, if he can stay healthy, you see that he hit very well behind the three-point lane. Isaac Bonga, he is the Fran Fraschilla, and I say Fran Fraschilla, I'm, in my opinion, 2 years away from being 2 years away. Even now what I'm seeing is still a long way for him. But your center, as far as it's concerned, is former second-round choice of the Lakers. He's come up to be a pretty good player as well.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think of Thomas Bryant and what you've seen from him from the last 2 years, because he's kind of a divisive player here in the DC area. I feel like I'm kind of the de facto president of his fan club, so I feel like I defend him a lot, but he's so young still, and everybody's like, well, he's not a great defender yet, and it's so hard to defend the paint in the NBA if you're 21 years old and haven't gotten a lot of minutes. So be curious to hear what you guys think of.
I think he has a future. I thought he did back then when he was playing with the Lakers. I think he was one of the harder individuals we let go and we let slip away from our team. But as you know, we had to make a lot of financial choices because of who we were getting. And Thomas Bryant, as a second-round pick from Indiana, I thought was a steal. At that point in time, it has proven to be the case. I think he has a future, whether or not it's at a starting level. I'm not entirely sure. Let's say starting level on a really good team. He could be very well, because he can do the pick and roll. He can go out to the corners and pop at a good percentage. That's the thing. He has that touch, something we saw glimpses of with the Lakers whenever we got him into the game. I think that if he goes ahead and just maybe gets a little bit stronger, I think he can go ahead and be a little bit more impactful on the defensive end. But I as a big fan of, like I said, of his playing, I don't blame you for being that, because we saw the potential was there. I am hopeful that he goes ahead and lives up to that potential. I know because of the numbers that he's starting to produce with Washington, he's starting to generate a lot of buzz. Like you said, either which way, he's also getting into a range where he's going to be, because he was a second-round draft pick, those contract talks come a lot sooner. And now it comes to, okay, what price tag is he going to ask for? That is the problem. Is he going to be that great value that he has been? Or going forward, is he going to be getting it to the point where is he going to be a little bit in that overpriced rate? I mean, how many big men have we seen have 1 or 2 great years? They go ahead and they sign those big contracts, and then they're, well, Timothy Mozgov here at the Lakers, that tells you right there.
Jan Mahinmi for the Wizards.
Exactly. Yami. Yeah, that's right. We were talking about from 2016, the rest, the remnants of 2016 are right there for you. That's what I fear, because he's on that teeter-totter right there, whether or not he becomes a really good player and a strong individual on a winning team, or he could become a liability financially because he had just a period of time where he's really good before he signed a massive contract. He's right on that either or. So I'm not sure exactly which way he'll fit in.
Yeah, I see him as probably, if you want to be a really good team with deep playoff aspirations, he's got to be probably your 5th best starter. I mean, realistically, maybe 4th or 5th if he and the other guy are about the same. But this actually was the first year of his most recent contract, and I want to say he makes like $7 million a year, which it might incrementally go up over the next 2 years of it, but you can't beat that even as a backup center in the league. So that's the one thing I think we've done right in the last couple of years is get him on a reasonably team friendly deal. And just so tough in the NBA to find guys in sort of that middle contract range. They either make 35 million or they make 2. So it's good even as a trade asset, I would think.
He is a good value right now, and I'm hoping it stays that way. The thing is, like you said, once he gets finished with that contract, that's the thing. And he's going to produce numbers on a team like Washington Wizards where they're I don't want to say a bad team, but it's a team.
No, we stink. It's fair.
Okay,
well, we're not very good right now.
Well, a team with your record, a team with the record that you have there, or teams with those records, like the Lakers were for 7 years. You're going to have big numbers on those teams. You're going to sometimes get contracts. I mean, we're seeing it now with Julius Randle and the Knicks. He's now got a poor guy. He's got a contract there that a lot of New York Knicks fans do not appreciate and do not like, even though he's a really good kid and really nice player. But that's the thing with Thomas Bryant. Which way is he going to go? He's going to produce some numbers if he stays healthy, I think, on those type of teams. And you're right. As a 5th starter, as a pick and roll guy, as a guy who can go out and get out to the 3-point lane, on the wings, on the ends, he can produce as long as he's hitting right above 35 to 40% from the 3-point line. He can still do that for you, I think. And if just provide enough defense. All he has to do is just provide enough defense for you long term. I think he can be a very good player in the league.
We recently had Brendan Haywood and Anton Thomas, 2 former Wizards centers, on our podcast in the last couple months. And the takeaway from both of them is just it's almost impossible to be a good defensive center in your first 2 or 3 years in the league because you're just so responsible for kind of the group defense, and nobody for Washington is playing particularly lockdown perimeter defense right now. So you're the guy that looks bad. When something goes wrong anywhere else on the floor, the guy at the rim is usually the one that everybody points to. So got to get him a little break, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But if he gets into his 4th, 5th, 6th year and he's still missing a lot of defensive assignments, therein lies the problem. And there you get to really understand what kind of defensive player he is, I think, right around there. But yes, you're right. For the first couple of years, you got to give him some break as he's learning. Because like you said, the NBA is about a learning process. And it's something where people have to go ahead and understand, like you said, from the center position, you're the last line of defense. And you just have to understand where you need to be at all times. And it takes some time in learning that, especially from the center position.
Yep, totally agree.
Now, talking about the Washington Wizards here, it's just, like I said, I don't want to, I hear all the time what the Lakers fans say and about when it comes to the Washington Wizards. And I already put that out there. But the future of the Washington Wizards looks a lot brighter. I mean, now I don't even know what to expect because they don't have Bradley Beal there. They don't have Davis Bertans. I know that obviously Bradley Beal, whether or not he wants to, he's right now saying he wants to stay with the team, but the future could be dictated otherwise. With Davis Bertans, he obviously he sat out because he's had 2 knee injuries. He's just doing as a precaution. He's in line for a nice big paycheck from either Washington or any one of the other teams that are out there. I can't say I blame them, but how effective does that give you guys a chance as far as battling for that 8th playoff spot? Because you have Brooklyn, which I think almost called Larry Hughes down. And they might have called Larry Hughes because of the fact
they're getting close. Yeah.
They're getting
it's a skeleton crew there.
So your co-host might have been actually, getting back in the uniform for the NBA team, because Brooklyn is just really so hard times right now. There is a chance that, I know they're 5.5 games out, but there is a chance if they perform well.
Yeah, we're 6 back of Brooklyn, but you only have to close it to 4 to force a play in. So that gives you a little hope.
That gives you a little hope. Do you think they can manage to do it?
The thing that's going to make it really tough is it just came out, I guess, yesterday or maybe on Friday, but Thomas Bryant didn't travel with the team actually because he is now has COVID. Gary Payton, also from the Lakers organization too, also has COVID. Garrison Matthews, who was an undrafted player we picked up that is a world-class shooter, didn't travel with the team for personal reasons. So we're kind of in a similar boat to Brooklyn. Like you said, Larry's probably only a couple calls away here if guys keep dropping out. It'll be a question of if those guys can come back. We were
talking before, Raphael Barlow and I, about Joe Johnson. I mean, we're running out of names here because Michael Beasley got picked up by Brooklyn. Yeah,
J.R. Smith.
Yeah, J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith immediately already arguing about his or complaining about his hotel room. Yeah, Jamal Crawford. I mean, all these names. I was thinking at the basketball tournament that was going on the side, they're going to get all those players involved in there pretty soon if that
it's
works
not
out.
Far off.
Yeah, it's not.
There are a couple guys in there. There's a couple guys in there that look like they could go. Mike Dom, probably could have been a first-round pick if he'd have left a year earlier. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were watching those games pretty intently.
I wouldn't be surprised as well. It's so funny how that's working out. My thoughts are with those players that have contracted it. I'm hoping for a safe and healthy return whenever they can return to the hard court. But in your own opinion, do you think the Washington Wizards have a chance to go ahead and compete?
I think they can close the gap, to be honest with you. For Brooklyn, does it really do them much good to make a playoff push either? I wouldn't be surprised to see, guys like Jamal Crawford or Michael Beasley out there just to, those older players are there to just kind of mentor some guys and teach them a few tricks. And I think they want to grow their younger guys. You'll see a lot of Jared Allen minutes, people that, the Nets are decent, but they're actually still pretty young overall. So I think they're probably going to do something similar to what Washington wants to do. Just get guys a lot of minutes, get them better, and whatever happens, happens. So I think we could close the 2 games realistically. It's just tough to beat a team 2 games in a row for that play-in series. There's no way we're going to overtake them and be the 8th seed going into it. I think Orlando is, much better positioned to just sort of sneak up to 7. So it's a 2-horse race would be my opinion. But they've actually played well against Brooklyn. It's just, anytime you have to do 2 sudden death back-to-back win games for a team that's as young as Washington, Isak Bonga is probably a realistic starter at this point. It just, I wouldn't think it's too likely. I don't think about that though.
Well, with Isak Bonga, like I said, he's still a project. Even on my time when I'm watching him on the floor for Washington, he's getting the minutes. It's just a case where he hasn't put it all together yet. I'm not saying he's going to or not going to. I'm just saying he hasn't as of yet. I mean, somebody with that kind of size that he does and his the capabilities. I know what Magic Johnson saw at that time when they drafted him. Magic Johnson saw Magic Johnson in him when Isak Bonga was drafted. I know that's what he was saying at that point in time. But I understand with Isaac Bonga, there is still a lot of development there, but I think you've got Rui. Rui Hashimura has done such a great job so far. He's looking like a bright spot on your team. Do you think he can step it up in this 8-game period of time to maybe not necessarily just? I'm not asking just to actually catch up to the 8 spot or to get into that playing game, but can you see just like a big leap for Rui Hashimura, because it's that point in time where late in the year you have those rookies that I'm finally starting to get it. I'm finally starting to go ahead and things are starting to click. I think things for him could start to click very soon.
So he missed a pretty good portion in the middle of the season with a groin injury. And when he came back, he looked like kind of a different player. It was really funny where, he'd have like 18 points in the first half and look so sharp and do almost nothing in the second half. I'm not really sure if that was just getting his conditioning back or what the deal was. But the shot, looked like it had more arc to it. And that's the thing. He's a great mid-range shooter right now, but you don't need that much arc on your jump shot to do that. So the NBA 3-point line has been a challenge, but it just looked better. And we recently had the Wizards G League coach Ryan Richmond on, and he's been in the gym with them doing a lot of like player development, the individual workouts to get them ready for Orlando. And his big takeaway was, hey man, Hachimura looks like a half step better, more athletic, stronger. The shot looks better. The other player that the Washington's talked a lot about is Troy Brown Jr. Really good ball handler, really good rebounder for sort of a 2-3 wing player. The question is, can he shoot it? There's a lot of guys on the Wizards where if they end up like reasonable shooters, they're pretty good. But both of them have supposedly they look leaner and fitter, and I think that'll make the biggest difference. But just you give Hachimura the ultimate green light, and he can put up 20 easy. So I definitely think he'll look good.
That's what I'm thinking as well. I think that he has developed, and like you said, he had that injury, but he's come back now. And with that time off, I think he's going to take advantage of it. And now in these 8 games, I think you're going to see a stretch where you're going to see him averaging close to, if not over 20 points a game. I think he's going to, be the person on offense that they're going to go ahead and turn to. So I expect a growth and a maturation period that he's going to take advantage of going forward.
Yeah, it's almost impossible for an NBA team not to score 100 points in a game at this point. So somebody has to put the ball in the basket, and just looking at the rest of the guys they have, Ish Smith is going to play a lot of minutes for them. He's a 10, 12, a game kind of guy at best. Shabazz Napier is probably going to end up being the starting point guard. He's going to be in a similar boat. Maybe he ups it a little bit more with more minutes. If Thomas Bryant does or doesn't play, makes a big difference, I think. Mo Wagner is probably never going to score, more than 15 a game. So Hachimura is kind of the first option on offense, I would imagine.
And that's going to be great for him, that he's going to take, this opportunity. And it's going to be, like I said, a growth period of time for him. And when the team all gets back together, when John Wall, knock on wood, comes back, it's always a wait and see process with him.
I agree.
And Bradley Beal comes back along, who had a tremendous season. And I'm going to say, as much as I want the Lakers to go ahead and pair up AD, LeBron, and Bradley Beal, I would say it's not in your best interest as far as the Washington Wizards concerned to trade him unless you get a whole truckload of assets. And because he's just playing on an unreal level, 30 points a game. I mean, he's been more of a playmaker, passer. Defensively, he's not. I know on the team like that, it's hard to stay focused defensively. So I'm going to give him a little bit of pass on that because he's been better before in previous years. And I think if he gives the opportunity where he sees a winning operation, he's going to go ahead and focus in on that areas. But he's been tremendous on the offensive side of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, he's taken a huge step forward, and just looking at some of we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but how many old playoff games can you watch? And even going back to 2017, where they played in the Eastern Conference semis against Boston, Beal looks like a totally different player. I mean, you didn't really want him to put the ball on the floor back then, and now, you can kind of throw him the ball on the wing and get out of his way and expect, he's probably going to get a bucket. It's just, like you said, the defense is still a thing. There were a couple times this year when he did take the challenge. They played the Mavericks early in the year. He wanted to guard Luka down the stretch. Varying degrees of success with that, but you like him wanting to take that matchup on. So, it's just, I think what they're doing actually makes sense for the first time in a long time. As a Wizards fan, there's been a lot of, I wrote an article around here at the tail end of last calendar year about the best 100 Wizards of the decade. And the pretty much consensus third best Wizard was Marcin Gortat, who was a fine player, but it's really hard to make a deep playoff run when that's pretty fairly the third best guy you've had for that stretch. And they're actually going young. They're trying to guys that are complementary guys that also have some upside. And I think that's sort of what LA did to sort of build back up, was to get as many young assets with some ceiling, and then you try to add some stars around it. So, whether that is Wall and Beal or the two stars, I'm not sure what that'll look like long term, but it's exciting. I'd much rather be where you guys are in terms of that rebuild, but it could be worse, I guess.
That's true. We're very fortunate. I'm not going to tell you differently when you're able to go ahead and get LeBron and AD. I mean, that's something that, as a Lakers organization, that they were able to go ahead and hone in on it and do very well. And they did surround with enough players that have those kind of skills to make the team put in the position where they are. But right now we are essentially that focusing on 1 and 2 players right there. And we're going to go as far as LeBron and AD together will take us. And I think they're going to take us all the way. But I want to hear your thoughts on Eastern and the Western conferences. Who do you like? Who do you envision as being maybe a surprise team, and ultimately, who do you think will go ahead and match up in the finals?
I think in terms of who the best couple teams are, it's going to be a boring answer, unfortunately. I think Milwaukee and the 2 LA teams are just kind of clearly the best of the bunch. The surprise, air quotes surprise, maybe not a surprise to anybody, but the 2 teams I think that maybe could make that a little interesting, and that's assuming nobody gets sick, everybody comes back and plays. Like, there's just a lot of question marks there. But Toronto and Boston, I think, are kind of the 2 teams that could make that interesting. The run Tatum was on when everything, sort of shut down was really impressive. And I think there are very few coaches in the NBA that make like a meaningful difference in their team's ability to like make a deep playoff run. And just the stuff that Toronto does is like really creative. They'll trap, they press. It's kind of like just unorthodox, and I think that works sometimes. And what they've been able to do from some lesser heralded guys has been really cool to watch. So if they stunned somebody or took out the Bucks and got hot, it wouldn't really shock me, to be honest with you. But this year's just going to be so weird. What do you do if somebody gets sick? And I would have said the Lakers were the favorite in my personal opinion. I obviously didn't watch them as closely as you were this year, but I think the Avery Bradley loss was a legitimate one. Just another guy that could go out and burn up some minutes by trying to play some gritty D. He's obviously not the defender he used to be. He's not shooting it as well as he used to, but you just kind of need like reasonable, competent bodies when you're trying to like match up against somebody like the Clippers. So I think that hurts. But just to me, when you have the 2 of the 5 best players in the league, or 2 of the 7 best players in the league, however you want to, end up rating them, it's just such a dramatic advantage. And I don't really trust Paul George that much. So that would be my preference, to see a Lakers Bucks final, but you never really know, I guess.
You never really know, but it sounds like what you're saying, it looks like it's going to, at this point in time, you think if health regarding, it's health willing, you can go ahead and say maybe that the Lakers Bucks would be in the finals. I'm still thinking that I think if there's any team in the East, like you said, Boston, if Tatum gets hot, Philadelphia, if they decide they want to go ahead and play together, and decide do they want to play together pretty much, But there's Toronto. If Nick Nurse can come up with a great game plan, you never know because he's been so brilliant over the past season and 3 quarters now. There's just Miami with Jimmy Butler. You never know how far that's going to take them. But there's so many different options. Houston with the small ball, and of course you said with the Clippers because they have such a deep team. But I'm thinking Lakers Bucks myself. But at this point in time, but Lakers, of course. Yes, not only because I host the show, but because of the fact that again, it comes down to those two against everyone. I'm going to take, or as they say here in Vegas, those two against the field. I'm going to go ahead and take those two. Of the finals matchup between the Lakers and the Bucks, who would you have?
I think it just comes down to Chris Middleton. How much he's the 4th best guy in that series, and how close he can close those gaps to the other 3 guys, I think is really what kind of swings that. We had a game earlier in the year when the Wizards were actually playing pretty well for a stretch, and they played Milwaukee without Giannis and got blown off the floor. It was just unreal. Like there's some guys that you wouldn't expect on that team to really be able to step up, but they're actually like deeper than I think they get credit for, and that helps. But when you get into that part of the playoffs, you really just need guys to like just up their level. And I've yet to see Chris Middleton kind of take that big step in a big situation. Doesn't mean he can't. He didn't do it last year, in any meaningful way when they needed him to, but that was also kind of their first run at it. I think that's the biggest thing is just when it comes down to it, I think you can, at least Davis can contain Giannis enough. Can Middleton even remotely match the production of somebody like LeBron? And I think the answer is probably no. So if the Lakers get to that point and all those surrounding pieces can hold up reasonably well, nobody gets hurt, that's I think a matchup that just favors the Lakers. Plus you have enough big guys to throw at Giannis. I think that's the other move is keep guys fresh, just keep throwing big bodies at him. Dwight Howard going, I'm not the biggest Dwight Howard fan just because his tenure didn't go particularly well in DC, but maybe that's even an understatement. But I think just being able to throw a veteran big that's willing to bang around, can actually match up with Giannis reasonably well from a physical standpoint, I think that's just a huge luxury.
And then also JaVale McGee, who I still remember that time in the finals when he was with Golden State. He was put out on the block. He was not on the block. Excuse me. He's put out on an island with a guard, and right there, just had enough athletic ability to go ahead. And everybody was thinking that there's easy 3-pointer. He's going to get right around him. Nope, was able to go ahead and do it if he stays focused. I know he loves to hunt for the block shot, as he did when he was with Washington as well. He can for at least give you 5, 6, 7 minutes on Giannis that might go ahead and give AD a break. Because the thing is, yes, you're right. AD can match up very well against Giannis. But the thing is, you don't want to throw AD at him 30 minutes because he's going to get the foul trouble, things of that nature. So, yeah, if you like you said, through the whole game. But if you can throw enough bodies out there, smaller or larger, on Giannis, that might be enough. Whereas conversely, the Lopez twins, which are done very great job for Milwaukee. I'm not going to say differently. But can they match up well against AD? I think that's going to be a problem quickness-wise for both of them to handle AD. Plus, AD can take them outside and really start to show them some stuff. Plus, the Lakers have also a great 2-man game that they're really starting up with LeBron and AD that they've only shown glimpses of that they could really go ahead and get going in the playoffs. So, like you said, it's going to be a close matchup, I think. I think it's going to be something everybody wants to see. I'm glad that it's going to be in a format where you can say, hey, no home arena is going to be involved in this. It's going to be the best team is going to win, because that's what I think overall in this playoffs. It's due to unfortunate circumstances, but you are going to be able to say that whoever comes out on top with the NBA championship, they were the best team because they're doing it all under the same circumstances.
Yeah, and I think just you made a really good point there too. The LeBron AD 2-man game is going to be just so hard to guard, especially for a team like Milwaukee. I mean, you need Middleton so much offensively that you can't really afford to have him guard LeBron the whole game. And, is Dante DiVincenzo big enough to do? I don't think they have the right personnel for that particular matchup. And JaVale, like you said, is actually long enough to go out and kind of chase a Brook Lopez around on the perimeter and things like that too. So I think if the Lakers go up early in a matchup like that, that's maybe one of those series that kind of gets away from Milwaukee pretty quick. That would just be my guess.
Well, there you go. For us Lakers fans, it's definitely something that warms our heart when anybody else says that. But either which way, just a great opinion there for you. Once again, I have Matt Modderno. He is the host along with NBA veteran Larry Hughes. You got to go ahead and check out their show, Bleav. That's BLEAV in Wizards. That's the Bleav in Wizards podcast. I'm actually on for Facebook Live users. I actually have it on the screen right here. That's the Bleav in Wizards podcast. You got to catch it everywhere you get your podcast going. Like, he's already named off a ton of NBA guests he's already had on the show, whether former players, coaches, whatever. You've heard the list already of just some of the names that he has on there. And if you go right now, you can check out all the great the podcasts he's had already. Check it out today. That's the Bleav, BLEAV in Wizards podcast. And before we head on out, I'm just going to hit you with one last thing, and then you can go ahead and talk about all the great reasons why people need to listen to your show. And that is the Woj controversy. The free Woj is now trending on Twitter. Free Woj, in regards to Adrian Wojnarowski. And I reported this the other day on our previous conversation with Rafael Barlow from the NBA Draft Junkies. And that was that he did go ahead with a response, or interjected himself into a response when U.S. Senator Josh Hawley sent a letter to Adam Silver in regards to his displeasure over some of the things that weren't being said as far as on the backs of jerseys or what's being represented there. He said he's a conservative representative, and he said things that are or could be perceived as far as from a conservative point of view. And Adrian Wojnarowski, in response, he just interjected himself because he got a hold of the letter and interjected with Josh Hawley by telling him "F you." And regardless whether you're on the right or left, that's up to you. It's all, whatnot. He did get suspended by the ESPN, something which at the time before it came out, something I was pretty much expecting, because as a journalist, I'll say this, as a journalist, if you're on a show like Stephen A. Smith and you say, I disagree with his opinions, I think it should be about the Black Lives Matter movement and the social injustice and racial equality, that's what we should focus on. That's no problem. That's fine. But when you're going ahead as a reporter and you're interjecting yourself right at that very person and putting your opinion in there, that's when you cross that border as a journalist. And I think that's what ESPN has an issue with. But the content and his intent obviously it's gotten a lot of approval out there, and a lot of players, NBA players, are now they've got the trend, the Twitter hashtag trending free Woj out there because they don't want to see Woj suspended because of it. Like I said, whether you're on the right or left, that's your choice on this issue. But I want to hear your thoughts on the free Woj Twitter controversy and what do you think should happen? He's just, to me, I just think he should be his suspension. I don't know if whether or not you want to say he should be suspended or not, but I really think that he should have just left his personal opinion on the ESPN Sports Center. Just say your opinion's there in a family-friendly manner and left it at that.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly with you. I think if you're going to do it publicly, you have to be professional about it. And if you want to lay out your reasons for disagreeing, totally fair, and everybody has the right to do that. And that's all well and good. The kind of different point I would maybe try to make is it was a one-person response email he sent, right? He just responded back to that email. So it's a public, supposedly, when you send it, you think partially privately response. It wasn't his choice to take that publicly. If he'd have tweeted, F you, I think that's obviously
even
worse.
A little different. That's like if you were going on, that's a profane way of going on ESPN Sports Center and saying you disagree with it. but he actually sent it as a private email to. Now he might have been knowledgeable, thinking that Holly's going to go ahead and post it on social media. Maybe he wanted to do that, but he sent it directly to Holly, and that's where that's the only thing I say that maybe he should not have gone down route.
I mean, at some point, I think there's some expectation where, what is and isn't part of your job. If you feel that strongly about a personal issue and he wanted to respond to it with whatever he wanted to do personally, I'm okay with that. It's just, you got to know that if you're a public figure in some way, that whatever you write, there's a reasonable chance that it becomes a public thing anytime, and interject yourself. So you got to be a little bit better than that. You got to be a little bit above the fray. But it happens. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I've definitely had, a moment of frustration or something and responded publicly or privately, probably more so privately, to somebody that I wouldn't want out there. And it happens. I think you live with the consequences. I was a little surprised that timing wise, they would suspend their biggest sports reporter before their biggest, sporting event of the last 5 or 6 months. But I think you had to give him something just from a consistency standpoint. They've done that to other people in the past for similar outbursts or reactions or whatever. So
Jamel Hill, I think, is probably the most recent that I'm familiar with.
Exactly. If you don't do that, you look really bad. So I'm not surprised he got something. I am a little surprised that it happened exactly how it happened. And I think they didn't even say for how long yet, did they?
No. Again, ESPN didn't even report it on their own site. At the time, it was all going on Twitter and it was all going on Yahoo and all the other sites and whatnot. I went to ESPN.com and I showed it's not that. Of course, they're not going to go ahead and air their dirty laundry unless they absolutely have to. But yeah, they didn't give any inclination how long it is. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's back right there on the 30th. Sure. So what is he missing? The scrimmage is big,
right? Big
deal. So like I said, I really truly appreciate him and his opinion, and I think that it could have been a better way to approach it. And he did, to me, in my opinion, from what I was taught in journalism school and whatnot, I think he did cross that line a little bit. But there's no problem. I wouldn't have a problem if he said it on Twitter as far as, his opposition to what was said, or if he went on SportsCenter opposition. But to go directly when something that wasn't even meant for him in the first place, it was actually a letter to Adam Silver. That's I mean, if you and I would have done it, the expectations are there for us to have someone lay the hammer down on us as well.
He's just got such a big platform too. I think it's a much more meaningful response if he does come out publicly and say what he does or doesn't agree with. So, but it happens, you know what I mean? I think everybody kind of slips up on some stuff. So not the worst thing I've seen anybody do over the last couple months for sure. And, if it's a week suspension before he was even set to go down to Orlando anyway, I
think he's in Orlando quarantining anyways.
Right. Exactly. You give him a week's vacation, and it's like when college teams say a coach, had a recruiting violation, so we're going to suspend him for the one preseason scrimmage or whatever. It just doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme.
Well, I'm hoping he will be reinstated by the time the league comes back to play on the 30th for actual games. He is such an outstanding reporter. I do have infinite respect for him and his inside ability. And I wish, I listen to all of his stuff, and I as far as what I catch, and he and Shams Charania, his one-time protege, are now the two preeminent insiders that's out there. So I wish him the best. And again, I'm not going to say I don't disagree with what he was saying. I'm just going to say that, just the way he approached it, I think in hindsight, as he had said on his Twitter, he had to make as you and I both now know, the apology that you should have to make publicly after something like that, even if it's begrudgingly. I just think he should have approached it in a different manner. So I'm hoping for the best for him. I'm hoping for the best going forward, and that he will use this as a learning tool. And if he wants to go ahead and share those opinions, do it on the air. Do it on the air, just like Stephen Smith does every single day, just like Max Kellerman and all the famous ESPN talking heads. Do it there. Share it on that showcase, because it gets out to a lot larger people, and you're your opposition and gets more out there, and you'll get more support from it. But he's getting a ton of support now for the Free Woj movement on Twitter. So it's interesting to see how Twitter and the NBA players are doing it. But yeah, it's a great story. Either which way, it's just interesting when the story breakers become the story.
Yeah, agreed.
That to me is the most intriguing part of it all. But that, like I said, go ahead.
If you're in the insight game and your job is to be an insider and you rely really heavily on those relationships with players, just like you said, based on their reaction so far, it hasn't hurt his overall image with the players in any way. So maybe playing the long game here, it actually benefits him a little bit.
Well, absolutely indeed. But before we head on out, Matt, I want to go ahead and it's your time. You have the floor. You got a couple minutes to go ahead and tell people why, or as much time as you need to tell people why they need to believe in the Bleav in Wizards podcast.
So we actually can't take credit for the name there. We're part of a larger podcast network called the Bleav Podcast Network. And the goal is to attach sort of a host. I have a broadcast journalism degree. I've written for a ton of local outlets with a former athlete to provide just sort of different insight. Locally we have a lot of good Wizards content, but there aren't a ton of former players that come on and give sort of that X's and O's level, insight into things. So that's what Larry and I are trying to do every week. So Larry Hughes played for a bunch of different teams, played for the Wizards for kind of the best couple years of his career and just really fond of the city. So we teamed up to do that. The network has like Rick Barry does the Warriors podcast, and Ralph Sampson does a podcast. So they got a couple big, former NBA names, and threw a couple names out there. The last big name we had was Gilbert Arenas 2 episodes ago. That's a guy that probably could have talked basketball for like 4 hours without needing a break. So that was a fun one to sit in on. But yeah, we're just trying to provide some player level, behind the scenes insight into what they're seeing on the court. So we've been, a little more general NBA focused over the quarantine, just because there's not enough Wizard specific stuff. But if anybody's ever interested in finding out, hey, this is why this player did this, and this might be what this coach is saying in this huddle, that's the stuff we're going to try to get into once there's actual games to talk about again. So appreciate you giving us an opportunity to plug that a little bit. This was so fun. I will be rooting for the Lakers just because of all the nice things you guys have done for us and all the toys you provided our way the last couple of years. So this has been great.
Well, it's been great for me as well. We're both using that G word so much.
We'll take it. Yep.
But it is great. It is, once again, Matt Modderno from the Bleav in Wizards podcast, part of the Bleav. That's BLEAV. Because if you type in the regular way, you're not going to find it. It's BLEAV podcast network. You got to check out what he's doing today with all the great guests that he has on, with, of course, NBA veteran Larry Hughes on the Bleav in Wizards podcast. And then I know you said you do a lot of written work as well. Can you drop knowledge on everybody out there on how to get a hold of you on Twitter and where you're writing at?
Yeah, sure. So I just write for the local Wizard SB Nation site, Bullets Forever. My Twitter handle is just at Matt Modderno, MODDERNO. So all that good stuff. I wrote for like a Draft Express and people like that in the past. So just kind of different NBA outlets. Just the podcast, how it is. It takes up so much time to kind of clean these things up and get them produced, and that's sort of my main focus these days. But just did an article the other day about top 10 center prospects in the NBA draft. So just trying to keep some content going until we have real games again.
I know how that is firsthand. As someone who hosts
figured you can relate.
Fantasy football, NBA, and of course the main gig, the pop culture stuff that I do. Yeah, I definitely hear you. But I want to bring you back on very soon. Especially because the NBA draft has come around, and I've been working with Raphael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies, Stone Hansen from DraftSite.com, the Weisenbergs from Viceland, who were all both just very invested. In fact, they did a mock draft that I got kicked out of because StreamYard only did 6 and I was the 7th. So they did a mock draft yesterday. So it was really fun to watch them go ahead and pick. I've done it before with them as well. But yes, I'd love to have you part of that and all that. So we'd love to get you involved in that, and love to bring you back on for your insight, because I'm doing a lot of NBA draft shows here. So I'd really love to have you back on, not only for the playoff insight and all that, but also NBA draft stuff as well.
This was absolutely great. I had so much fun doing this. So anytime you need somebody, I'm happy to fill in.
And you know what I say to that? That's just great.
I think we got our name for our podcast episode here. I think
it was. I was going to say, yeah, either that or Free Woj, but I think I like the great better. But I'll tell you what, it is Matt Modderno from Bleav in Wizards podcast. You got to check it out today at the Bleav Podcast Network, BLEAV. Just type that in Wizards. You see all the great guests he has there. It's an awesome podcast. I've already listened to a few episodes already. It's the Bleav in Wizards podcast. You got to check out Matt Modderno's work there and everywhere else. You got to go ahead and check out if you're a Wizards fan or you just love the NBA. Well, there you go, Matt. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being part of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Looking forward to our conversations down the line on the NBA, the playoffs, the Wizards, the NBA draft, and so much more right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast.